Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I'm the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, the Blended Podcast, and founder of the Blended Pledge. And I'm so excited to be collaborating again with two of my favorite industry titans. Now, today we're putting the spotlight on CargoWise Landside. I've worked with the team at CargoWise for many years. They're really at the forefront of the industry, and we took a closer look at the landside part of the business recently with Tom Burke on Let's Talk Supply Chain. It was episode 441 if you want to check it out after we finish today. Now, I'm going to be joined by Tom, Dennis, and Jessica to dive deeper into how organizations can elevate their container drayage operations to maximize profit and growth. Two of the biggest goals that are on most organizations' minds as they strategize for the year ahead. So after a tough few years, container drayage operators have found themselves with low staff and dispatcher to driver ratios, plus high costs impacting both their top and bottom lines. They're still grappling with inefficient manual processes, resulting in errors that zap time and resources and prevent them from scaling. And at the same time, everyone's telling them they need to boost visibility, connectivity, and data accuracy. I mean, it's a tough place to be, and I can feel almost impossible to pick all of that apart and know where to start. Well, the CargoWise Landside team has your backs. They are bringing together several of the longest-serving drayage TMSs along with the complementary technologies under the CargoWise umbrella. They're helping teams build roadmaps towards best practices that can reduce costs, increase efficiency, enable growth, and improve customer, staff, and driver satisfaction. So you can propel your drayage trucking business to the next level of expansion and profitability. Friendly reminder throughout this discussion today, if you have any questions, feel free to add those into the Q&A box. So let's get started with some introductions. We are going to be bringing up to the stage Dennis, Tom, and Jessica. So welcome to the stage. Can you each let me know who you are and what you do? So Dennis, we're going to start with you, and then we'll go to Jessica and Tom.
Yeah, hi, Sarah. Thanks for that. My name is Dennis Lane, and I'm the head of revenue for CargoWise Landside. I was formerly the managing director of Trinium Technologies and really have been with the company since inception in 2001. Just a little bit to cover on the CargoWise Landside team or the group. In 2024, we pretty much merged together the Trinium Technologies acquisition and the Envase Technologies acquisition of WiseTech. And we brought together, as you mentioned, the four leading dray TMSs in the market within our umbrella: Trinium, Profit Tools, CompCare, and GTG. And then we also have some complementary technologies in DrayMaster, GeoStamp, and an online marketplace for truck and container parking, which is called Secure Space.
Awesome. Tom, did you want to go next? And we'll end with Jessica.
Yeah, great. Great to see you again here, Sarah. I'm Tom Burke. I'm the product portfolio manager here at WiseTech Global, and I oversee DrayMaster and our order automation platform. That's a mouthful. I've been fortunate over my career to have built a wonderful career within all aspects of intermodal and the drayage businesses, and I've been in it for about 40 years. So this includes owning a trucking company with 400 trucks, 9 locations, and running a terminal operating company providing turnkey operations for a Class 1 railroad for 17 years. Then in 2012, I embarked on a journey to build technology to help drayage companies grow and prosper. And this included DrayMaster and our order automation platform that was acquired by Envase and now under WiseTech Global.
Great. Glad that you're here. Jessica, last but not least.
No problem. Hello, I'm Jessica Whitehouse. I'm a senior product manager at WiseTech Global. I work with multiple products, including GTG and DrayMaster, while supporting other global projects and initiatives at WiseTech. The logistics industry kind of runs in my family. I grew up immersed in the industry, even spending, I always make a joke with people, I spent family trips jotting down DOT numbers from the back of a minivan just so my dad could look up carriers. So
Nice.
It was kind of inevitable that I got into it. So my professional journey began at a third-party logistics company. And then in 2014, that's when I actually transitioned to the technology side of the industry, joining GTG, which is one of the core products that Dennis mentioned before.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you're here. So now it's time for the presentation. I'm going to turn it over to all of you, and I'm going to be back for the panel discussion in just a little bit.
Okay, from a context perspective today, within the actual supply chain, we just want to remind everybody that we are focused on kind of our sweet spot in the market, which is container drayage or intermodal trucking. This market is fairly fragmented. We deal with companies really of all sizes, from small mom and pops to medium-sized regional players to some of the largest companies in this space with a national network of drayage terminals, all primarily focused on serving ports and rails for short to medium haul container movements. So we're going to talk a little bit about challenges and common challenges. As the panel has already noted, our teams have a vast experience within this space, and we've talked to hundreds of companies. So the challenges that we see are common are, labor constraints and companies trying to right size their business based on their fleet size. We also see struggles for businesses to control, chronic and cumbersome accessorial charges and rating that sometimes eat into the profit margins of moving a single container. Scalability is also a problem. Companies enable scale, trying to scale their business based on, their growth goals and being able to scale their fleet size and scale their internal teams. And then finally, the ever-changing goal of meeting customer expectations, especially from an integration and a visibility standpoint. And then we want to talk about the digital transformation process and where we would address a lot of these common industry challenges. And then the value from a perspective of where the business value comes from, we generally throw it into three levels: reducing costs, enabling growth, and as I mentioned, improving customer satisfaction, and also extending that to staff and driver satisfaction, all focused on improving the bottom lines of drayage operations.
Okay, so when looking at technical trends and commercial considerations, first consider what a supply chain would look like without collaboration. Quite honestly, it would be fragmented, making it inefficient and unsustainable. So collaboration is really the glue that keeps freight moving at scale. Collaboration is evolving beyond surface level partnerships with 3PLs, carriers, shippers, and brokers who are working more closely together, both operationally and commercially. Collaboration removes these inefficiencies and helps to streamline the workflows. But if you think about it, collaboration alone really isn't enough. Integration and interoperability between systems is really key. Along with this, reducing the number of platforms that are needed to move a shipment from point A to point B cuts costs, saves time, and enhances real-time visibility in a world where speed and accuracy drive success. Today, drayage decisions are being made on a global level, and we're seeing a shift to door-to-door pricing. So for brokers, it's no longer enough to quote ramp to ramp, port to port, or terminal to terminal. Shippers need accurate end-to-end costs to be able to calculate their landed costs in advance of the freight moving. With 24/7 access, stakeholders can now make near instant pricing movement decisions, making door-to-door freight planning faster and even more efficient. So digital transformation has been at the heart of drayage for many years, but we have been slow to adopt. EDI and API connectivity continue to evolve. Both those alone are just not enough. Advanced technologies like OCR, GPS, geofencing, AI, and machine learning don't just improve individual processes, but they work together to create a connected, efficient, and resilient supply chain. As an industry, embracing these advancements is no longer optional. It's a necessary step to stay competitive and meet the ever-changing customer demands.
So now I want to address some of the not so fun topics, the operational challenges that many of you probably are facing daily or weekly. So the first we look at is our high customer expectations. Obviously, in our industry, it's important to keep our customers happy. What does that mean? What does keeping them happy mean? In our industry, there is a large need for visibility and connectivity. Today's freight originators and end customers demand real-time visibility, seamless connectivity, and precise data accuracy. I know some of my customers require them to have a POD uploaded within 5 minutes of delivery. It's a common standard these days. So our industry is shifting toward instant access to shipment status, predictive ETAs, and proactive exception management. Whereas before, a call to let your shipper or consignee know you're running a little late would suffice. Without capabilities to provide this information, customer satisfaction is ultimately going to drop, and over time, competitive advantage diminishes because someone else can provide it if you can't. The next one that we look at as an operational challenge is going to be our tight margins and slow payments, so the profitability drain. Operational costs such as per diem, demurrage, storage, chassis rental, and wait times can quickly decrease shipment margins. Delays in tracking and billing contribute to slow payments. You're going to have cash flow bottlenecks and financial strain. Recovering accessorial charges remains an almost impossible challenge in our industry, often resulting in lost revenue. And the last one that we see quite a bit often is manual and inefficient processes. That's what we're trying to solve here. Today's operations are often bogged down by inefficient manual processes, including container tracing, which is very manual if you're not using automation, rating, and driver carrier settlements. These are obviously very time-consuming, error-prone, and costly steps, which in return increase staffing costs and ultimately slow your operations. Employees are spending too much time on redundant tasks, reducing their job satisfaction, and diverting focus from high-value activities that could bring more joy to their job. So what's the path forward with these challenges? The drayage industry is at a pivotal crossroad. Those who embrace automation, visibility, and cost control will be the ones that end up thriving. The key to long-term success lies in adopting smarter technology-driven processes that enhance efficiency, boost your profitability, and elevate customer satisfaction.
We've talked about challenges and pain points in industry. Now we want to segue into really best practices into solutions. Many companies know they need to improve, but they struggle as even where to start. The idea of a full digital transformation can be quite overwhelming. So that's why we recommend an incremental approach where companies prioritize improvements over time based on those they add the most valuable value to their organization. What we've done is, when considering where to start, what we've done is broken out into 4 real segments of a container drayage operation to discuss areas where we could focus on improvement. The first, with regards to winning, receiving, tracing and scheduling, we talk about rating and quoting. Do you have a rate system internally where you can manage your rates and manage your quotes from an operations and a sales perspective? Are they accurate? And do they include all the accessorials for the customers? And then how are you generating and how are you saving those quotes? Then from an order management standpoint, how are you receiving orders? The various different ways. Are they emails? Are they PDFs attached to emails? Do you have a mechanism in your system that enables you to auto-calculate or auto-rate orders? And then do you have electronic means? Does the system, you have capabilities of connecting to your customers through an EDI or an API perspective? With regards to container tracing, all drayage companies have to trace containers. It's a mandatory aspect of the business. The question is, are your teams scouring dozens of different marine terminal and ocean carrier and rail websites to trace containers manually, or are you automating that process? And then other than the actual tracing and the ETAs of containers, are you getting more quality data like things like last free day demurrage and gate transactions? Getting into the second segment here, it's really the heart of the operation within dispatch. Drayage is really a series of leg-based dispatch steps. And with regards to your processes and your systems internally, the questions would be, as you're planning and execution from a dispatcher perspective, do you have the right tools? What are your dispatch teams using? Are they using Excel or Google or paper? Do they have on-screen configurable dispatch? Those are things to ask your teams internally. And then how are mobile technologies used? It's just key to have mobile technologies, and how is that mobile technology that's in the hands of the driver, how's that connected to the actual TMS itself? From a documentation standpoint, assessing, most companies will scan their documents and have a digital copy of their documents, whether it's delivery orders or PODs. Is that a standalone system? Is that connected to your actual TMS from a billing and a driver pay standpoint? And then container visibility. We have two aspects there. You have your internal visibility. What type of visibility do you provide your dispatchers and your customer service reps as to the locations of your containers and the locations of your drivers? And then the flip side of that is the customer visibility side. How are you providing that same visibility to your customers, and what mechanisms are you providing? Is your staff typing up manual emails, or do you have an automated way to keep your customers actually informed? And then within the third segment there, we have billing and driver settlements, carrier settlements. And with any TMS system and within any workflow within drayage, looking at and analyzing your invoicing, is there a system that's auto-calculating your rates? Do you have a mechanism to attach documents? Is there a workflow that triggers an order completion process from a proof of delivery standpoint that triggers invoicing? And then from a settlement standpoint, very similar. From a driver or carrier settlement standpoint, are you manually calculating everything, or is the system doing that for you? And then how are you tying your documents in? From a workflow standpoint, are the documents triggering an approval process for the settlement? And then the fourth aspect is really equipment and compliance. From a dray company's perspective, we have some customers, and we see the market where you have your owned and leased equipment, your trucks and your chassis. How are you tracking them? How are you measuring utilization? And then what's common in this space is you have third-party equipment that isn't owned by the trucker. It could be obviously the containers and also some rental chassis. How are you managing that? How are you billing for the usage of that equipment? And then from a compliance standpoint, all trucking companies are required to have safety compliance, and that safety compliance with regards to driver classifications and driver credentials, is that in the hands of the dispatchers? Are the dispatchers using that in their plan from a planning perspective? And then across all of these segments of the business, you also have to consider integration with third-party systems, and consider that when it comes to improving priorities outside the actual four walls of the business.
All right. So simply put, digitization and automation are game changers in the drayage business today. The days of managing your business using manual processes is no longer sustainable. So by digitizing and automating, you will ensure that you can move faster, win more business, reduce errors, and grow your business in a sustainable way. So let's dig into that a little bit further. Digitizing your rates is the first step towards being able to respond to RFPs in hours and not days or weeks. Make your rates accessible 24/7 on your website or via an API call. And this will enable you to provide faster responses no matter what time zone your customer is in or where in the world they are. You'll also be able to manage rates across multiple service territories, customize your rates for every customer, provide visibility into your capacity on a daily basis, as well as integrating into your TMS.
And the next step in this process is going to be your digital customer order processing. Automatically converting email delivery orders to TMS dispatchable loads removes the need for manual entry and speeds up processing. Couple this with AI and machine learning, and you will optimize order intake, ultimately reducing errors and ensuring that each order is correctly structured before turning it over to dispatch to execute the load. Outside of receiving orders via email, you can also automate order entry by receiving work orders via EDI, which is a heavy requirement in our industry today, and API integrations, allowing your customers to send orders directly and, of course, improving accuracy and eliminating processing delays. The next step is going to be your real-time dispatch planning and execution. So now we have our rates digitized and orders automatically being processed. So now it's time to move the freight, the most important thing we need to do, right? So key facts to consider when we're moving our freight. Automated container tracking is going to provide that real-time visibility from pickup to delivery, reducing status check calls and delays. Optimized dispatch with exception management enables proactive handling of disruptions and improving reliability. Obviously, in our industry, there's so much going on. So having some sort of exception management to know when to look at a shipment is really important. The driver mobile app connectivity. This ensures real-time communication, reducing miscommunication with the driver and improving operational efficiency. So they have everything they need right in front of them if you're using that driver mobile app. And then, of course, automate milestones events via GPS and geofencing allows for that real-time status updates without the manual intervention. Again, needing information quicker to get to your customer. And then last is going to be that electronic POD capture, which streamlines document managing, speeding up invoicing, and then reducing disputes with your clients. So now, Dennis, if you want to cover off different ways to automate the shipments now that we're at the next step.
Thank you. I want to talk about wait times, tracking, and visibility. With regards to driver wait times, within any transportation or any trucking operation, wait time is money. So whether it's an owner-operator or an employee-based operation, tracking wait time is key. So from an adoption standpoint, we want to see if companies are adopting geofence capabilities where you're building a geofence or drawing a geofence around all your pickup delivery locations that will enable you to automate the time at which drivers are entering and exiting actual locations. That'll allow you to manage the dwell time. And when you have the dwell time, you usually have a charging regime with the customer has, say, an hour free wait time and $80 an hour billable. Are you able to auto calculate that? And then importantly, from an owner-operator model, are you able to automate the payables as well? And is that integrated into your billing system? So that workflow is key for the wait time. We see a lot of manual intervention when it comes to this and too many touch points for companies that aren't operating at the best practice level. And then container tracing, as I mentioned, this is really a mandatory step within the drayage operations. Is your TMS integrated with the marine terminals and the rails that you serve, or are people going out manually scouring websites? The data getting pulled in, is it triggering and automating workflows within the TMS, not just visibility of data, but what is the meaning of that data and what is that data doing for you? And then beyond just the tracing of a container, the ETAs and the ATA of a container, but are you pulling back valuable data like gate transactions and PIN numbers and pre-advices, and then extending it all the way to pulling digital interchanges from the marine terminals and the rails and having that upload directly into the TMS would be the best practice continuum there for the container tracing. And then from a customer visibility standpoint, the flexibility is really required to provide a myriad of different ways where your customers can access data based on what their requirements are. The first would be an automated push of email notifications and or reports that get pushed out of the system via email based on status updates, or a customer wants a load status report every hour that can get queued up and sent out. And then offering customers a web portal where on demand the customer can sign in and track their loads, download PODs and things like that. We are seeing more and more demands for in-transit visibility, even though most of the shipments are short haul or medium haul, where the GPS coordinates of where that driver is, the customer wants visibility to that. And then the ultimate is the system-to-system connectivity, which is, usually when in our industry, it's EDI, it's becoming more and more APIs, but that's enabling your TMS internally to connect directly with your customer's application.
All right, so now we'll go into streamlining your invoicing and settlements. So as we all know, the invoicing and settlements are critical financial processes that will significantly affect cash flow, your profitability, and operational efficiency. However, many drayage companies still depend on manual methods, which often lead to delays, errors, and lost revenue. The solution lies, obviously, you'll see a common theme today, guys, automating these processes and integrating workflows to streamline payments, minimize those errors, and ensure the financial accuracy. In an industry where missing documents can delay payments and trigger disputes, adopting that automation is essential to maintaining smooth operations and improving that financial income. So just to go over a couple of the highlights of how you can streamline your invoicing side. So auto rate fees and accessorial. So this ultimately will reduce the human interaction and potential error. Integrated document imaging and storage, that eliminates the need to track down documentation to get paid, essentially. Streamline invoicing processes by emailing invoices with all documentation. You're not having to manually put together those invoices with the associated documents. They automatically go out from the system. And then of course, EDI and API system to system integration. That's going to be, your best option, electronically sending invoices to customers for quicker payments. And then of course, the desire or need to sync accounting systems. So that's going to reduce manual entry to keep your accounting system up to date once you get to those final steps. And then from a settlement perspective, we of course have opportunities to streamline those processes as well. Similar themes, but a little bit different because we're on the settlement side. So visibility, so of course to auto calculate settlements, that's going to again reduce the human interaction and error. And then visibility to pay in the driver mobile app. This is a little bit of a game changer because it may eliminate questions or on pay, or also disputes from drivers that may come in so they didn't get to see that pay up front. Automated and configurable driver deductions. We all know those are hard to keep track of. So streamlining, keeping track of those specific deductions, such as your escrows or your loans, would really help streamline your processes. And then of course, integration with fuel cards for fast and reliable payments to drivers. It's more of an automated process of doing that when you're paying your driver through a fuel card. And then of course, again, on the back end side, syncing your settlements with the accounting systems to again, reduce that manual entry in order to keep your accounting system up to date. I'll flip it back to you, Dennis.
Okay, thanks. An important aspect of really achieving best practices is measuring your progress. So we want to talk a little bit about what we think important KPIs are for drayage companies. The first segment here we want to talk about is in regards to labor. Staffing is generally the largest expense of most businesses, probably is the case also in drayage. So some of the ratios, the driver to staff ratio, driver to dispatcher ratio, and revenue per employee are key elements as far as measuring how you stack up in the marketplace. We come across companies where we'll document this for them throughout our consulting process, and you'll see drastic differences from the ratios that companies have in the revenue per employee. Sometimes 50 to 100% difference. You could have a trucking company with 50 trucks. One company has 20 staff, the next company has 10 staff. So you could imagine the drastic differences in their two bottom lines. Other KPI that we'll engage with customers on is what we call unrecovered accessorials. So anything where you have a service failure and you have to eat per diem or demurrage, rail storage, chassis rental, and then your margin, your gross margin on that box is really gone. So enabling KPIs to measure that. And then invoice, more on the financial side, the order completion to invoice cycle, reducing and compressing that. Every day you can shave off has a big effect on your cash flow and your financials. Other aspects we want to look at are things like retention rates and turnover rates, driver, staff, and customer turnover. Quality companies we see have low turnover rates in all three of those areas. And then also from a reporting and a measurement standpoint, how you're measuring your volume, your revenue, and your operational, your gross margins on moves at the terminal level, at the lane level, and at the customer level. The healthy businesses know which businesses, which aspect of their business from the lane perspective and a customer perspective are the ones they should focus on, and more importantly, where they should not focus. So, as the saying goes, you can't improve what you don't measure. So establishing KPIs is a really important aspect of improving your business.
All right, thanks, Dennis. So digital transformation. And the main point here is that it's just not about technology alone. It's about a mindset and how you're going to execute. To truly elevate your operations, companies need a structured approach that ensures success. So first, it starts with leadership. Executive buy-in is absolutely critical. Without commitment from the top, change won't stick. Leaders must champion operational improvements and invest in the right tools to drive efficiency forward. Digital transformation works best when you deputize super users and technology liaisons, a team who can bridge the gap between operations and technology. And these individuals will help with training, troubleshooting, and ensuring adoption across the company. Very important. Remember that transformation doesn't happen overnight. Successful companies roll out technology in phases to minimize disruption. And these are it's really a baby step approach to success. Remember, at the end, digital transformation is an ongoing journey, not a one-time event, and companies that commit will be the ones that lead the industry forward. Back over to you, Dennis.
Okay. We want to talk a little bit about the CargoWise offerings, the landside offerings here, with regards to how we can solve some of these problems that we've outlined today, the challenges and issues within the industry. We offer a really comprehensive suite of solutions that are all integrated together specifically for this space. And with combined, 30 years of logistics software experience from WiseTech and the acquired businesses, we bring a lot to the table from a domain experience and an expertise standpoint. Within the actual, I mentioned we are actively supporting all of our TMSs. The Trinium TMS is the lead TMS in the market. It provides the best breadth and depth of functionality for container drayage operations with proven scalability for large enterprises. The breadth and the scope of the offering will cover everything that we've talked about today, from order management to dispatch operations to invoicing and document management and carrier settlements. And some of the key aspects of the system that are really must-haves from an implementation standpoint is automated container tracing and the mobile application that is tightly integrated with the TMS itself. Tom?
Yeah, so I'm going to take DrayMaster and order automation, two really important add-on products to our portfolio. So DrayMaster is our digital rate management platform, and it was designed and built starting back in 2012. So over the last 13 years, DrayMaster has had the opportunity to build a community where drayage companies and brokers come together and collaborate on rates. DrayMaster automates rate calculations in a secure environment, providing real-time access to comprehensive pricing that includes the known accessorials. So DrayMaster eliminates the inefficiencies of manual rate management that leads to increased accuracy, faster response times, and improved profitability. With additional features like web-based rate search, full API access for integration, and the ability to publicize available capacity, DrayMaster empowers users to optimize their operation and build stronger relationships. Alongside that, we have our order automation product. Today, in this fast-paced logistics environment, manual order entry leads to errors and delays in orders getting in and orders getting dispatched. So our order automation platform automatically converts incoming orders, such as PDFs and Excel spreadsheets, into dispatchable loads delivered directly into your TMS. Order automation also utilizes complex workflows in the background and takes advantage of machine learning and AI, eliminating data entry and ensuring that all essential information is accurately captured. And back to you, Dennis, for GeoStamp.
Yeah, the GeoStamp application is the application within our group that automates the driver wait time process, really through the automated geofencing and dwell time calculations linked to customer invoicing and driver settlements. So the scope of the solutions that we just outlined is really just a high-level summary of the integrated solutions that we provide the container drayage market, and how we focus on addressing the industry pain points and the challenges to achieve business value through what we call the digital transformation process. There's obviously a lot more to it if you want to learn more afterwards, of course.
Great. Sorry, I just had to give myself a time to get back on the screen. But what I will say is that was a great presentation. I feel like you gave me a whole bunch of flashbacks to when I was working in freight. And I had to work
good and bad.
I had to wait 1 to 2 weeks for a POD, and now you're saying you can do it in 5 minutes. I was like, I wish I had that back then. And then also the tracing of the containers, Dennis, and like I used to have to go to all sorts of websites and the RFP in hours rather than weeks. I mean, You're giving me flashbacks, and I wish I would have had that. All right, we've got some really great questions coming in on the Q&A. And we're going to get to those in probably about 7 to 8 minutes, but we do want to get to the panel discussion. So, first question for you, Dennis. What is your outlook for the U.S. intermodal container drayage market this year, like in 2025?
Well, last year was a difficult year for drayage companies. So many of them went out of business. Most of them had to downsize their fleets and their internal teams due to the market changes. And they're positioned well to compete in 2025. So this year, it's going to be a little difficult to predict, especially with the new administration pushing for broad tariffs. But the general feedback we get is that we think the drayage companies think we'll return to a stabilized environment with the regular seasonality that we've had in the past. From a technology standpoint, now that these companies really have right size, they've gone through all those exercises. They're now looking at technology again. They're looking to evaluate and to implement, and I think they'll continue to do that as we talked about that. Assessing where they are in that digital transformation journey because they know they have to compete in the future.
Great. Thank you for that. Jessica, so I'm a big component of collaboration. You all mentioned it a number of times. I've got it on the wall back here. And by extension, interconnectivity and interoperability. Can you share some real world use cases with us? You did a great job with that 5-minute POD. So let's hear some more.
Sure. Okay. So let me think. Real world use cases. So let's start with the carrier and shipper collaboration. So many of our leading drayage providers are integrating their systems directly with customer TMS platforms via APIs, just to ensure that real-time visibility into the container status and reducing manual touch points. So kind of what you were talking about, that real-time information. So they're trying to integrate their products directly with each other. And then let's look at it from a different perspective. So the marine terminal and rail interoperability. So some operators now have direct API connections with rail yards and port terminals. So this allows for the proactive scheduling, real-time slot booking, and then also dwell time monitoring to reduce those delays. So I'm sure you've probably heard this, Sarah, but a lot of the ports now are requiring, PIN passes to get in or different types of appointments. So having that connectivity is just really beneficial to be able to get into the terminals much quicker. And then driver and fleet management integration. That's another one where companies are deploying connected driver apps that sync with dispatch and GPS tracking. So that improves kind of what we've talked about before, ETA accuracy, reducing communication gaps between the dispatchers and drivers, because that's a really good way for them to collaborate and make sure that they're on the same page of where their shipments are at. And then I guess just the key takeaway for that is that true collaboration, of course, is going to be achieved when the systems and stakeholders are seamlessly interconnected. I think we've seen a theme of that on this session here, that sharing that real-time actionable data will drive efficiency and then, of course, reduce any friction when it comes to just inaccuracies with the shipments. So,
yeah, data sharing is, essential for true collaboration. And sometimes we can get a little bit siloed, especially in this industry. All right, Tom, if an intermodal trucking company is new to digital transformation, can you elaborate on the organizational commitment needed to power that journey? And I would assume that it's going to be a big part of that, because some of the stuff that I've read is that digital transformation is really only 20% technology.
Yeah, you're correct. I think that the biggest point that can be made here is that you can't digitally transform your company unless the leadership, owners, and top executives are investing in the automation technology and the change management. And this requires an incremental kind of process to be able to get there. Start with small, high-impact changes, automating order processing or invoicing, and take those on before scaling up from there. There's also cross-functional involvement. Operations, finance, IT, and drivers all need to be aligned on the goals and benefits of the digital transformation, and they need to adopt it. And then you have to have training and onboarding, providing hands-on training and clear implementation roadmaps to ensure teams are comfortable with the new systems. And the key takeaway really is digital transformation isn't just about technology, as you said, Sarah, 20%. The rest is about aligning people, processes, and leadership to drive technology, to drive the long-term success using technology.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big, big part of that. I mean, 80%, that's a big part of digital transformation. Now, remember, we are going to get to audience questions soon, so make sure to put all of your questions into the Q&A box. But first, Dennis, we're going to go back to you. So what are some of the pitfalls that drayage operators should look out for when undertaking an incremental approach to best container drayage practices?
Well, in the early phases, I would say, make sure that you're not biting off more than you can chew. Change is hard. So your internal teams, your fleets, they have to be able to consume and change, especially with the early phases. And then once the initial phase of any technology deployment is done, don't be complacent. Get into that phase 2, that phase 3. We see too many times that customers stop after phase 1. And then over time, the best adopters of technology, they reassess and they revisit. This should never be a set and forget environment. Reassessing what should we be adopting in the future? What we did 5-10 years ago is less and less relevant, and more what's out there now. Companies need to adopt.
Yeah, and things are changing all of the time. I mean, we can't think about this as necessarily a destination, right? You're always going to be on this journey.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Tom, how can small and mid-sized drayage operators leverage automation to stay, I know that was a word you all used throughout that presentation, to stay competitive against larger fleets with more resources?
Yeah, I think the simple answer to that is baby steps, right? Start with automating invoicing, settlements, and container tracking to reduce administrative burden and really help to improve your cash flow. Coupled along with that is using cloud-based solutions. Smaller operators can adopt scalable subscription-based TMS platforms rather than investing in expensive IT infrastructure. I think that's really key. Leverage API connectivity by connecting with marine terminals, railroads, customers, TMSs, systems, and telematics, which is going to really give you that interconnectivity that we've been talking about. Lastly, but not leastly, is automate dispatching, driver workflows, and compliance tracking to make sure that your company is on track.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a key takeaway there from all of that to sort of summarize it? I know it probably has to do with automation.
Yeah, I think that choosing the right platforms and the right automation is going to be key. Do your research, understand what's available in the market, what the pros and cons of different systems are, and make your decision based upon that research.
Well, and I think references too. References are a really big part of, figuring out who's right for you and who to work with and what you can actually expect.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Jessica, how can employees and team members keep pace with change? I mentioned this earlier. It's a journey, right? It's not a destination. Things are changing all the time. So talk to us about how we can do that.
Yeah, I was actually going to tell you after. I really like the word journey because it really is, because you really have to keep up with the change. So I guess to keep up with that journey, just a couple points there is, training and upskilling. So offer ongoing training programs to ensure the employees can effectively use the new systems. What I always like to say is identify those key influencers that are within your organization. So trusted drivers or dispatchers, and prioritize their training first, because often you'll find there's a super user or there's a driver that people really look up to. And if they embrace the change, then they can really help that adoption across the whole organization. So that's one just little tip there. Of course, just clear communication. Change is hard. People don't, sometimes change is difficult. And as long as you help your employees understand why there's changes and it's easy to use so that employees can, quickly adapt to those workflows, then that'll make their experience a little bit easier. And then of course, recognitions and incentives. A lot of folks, just sometimes getting a pat on the back because they've done something good just really helps them feel like they should move forward with that change. So reward employees with, embracing that digital transformation. And that way they can help foster that enthusiasm within the group. Probably if anyone's on here that knows me, I always like to say the theme, teamwork makes the dream work. So if you can kind of make everyone work together to implement a new product, it's going to be more successful. So I guess the key takeaway there, you're kind of asking for those, I heard you ask Tom, is empower those well-trained employees to make sure that they can successfully implement and sustain the change within the organization.
Yeah, have some champions and some super users. All right, now we're getting to the question and answer period. If you haven't put your question in the Q&A box, please go ahead and do that now. So I have one for you. I think we could send this to probably Jessica. What are some quick wins for improving efficiency and profitability with minimal disruption? I think that's what everybody's looking for right now.
Yeah. So just off the top of my head, I mean, obviously, just kind of looking at some of the areas that may be complex for end users. So, the digital rate management and quoting. So having a platform that's going to help you with that process, to help you standardize and automate quoting. And also that provides your customer with access to rates 24/7. So that's one of the products that we provide, which is DrayMaster. Obviously, just moving away from any paper-based systems to streamline document handling and invoicing, that's going to be a huge win, just because that will streamline your invoicing side, getting paid, which is what obviously is going to keep your business thriving. And then utilizing and adopting a mobile app for tracking, for improved dispatch visibility, and just overall efficiency for your fleet. I think those are a couple big wins that you can implement fairly quickly. And that allows you to be more of a leader and not necessarily a follower.
Great. Thank you for that. So now this one, what are some of the bottlenecks that automation can solve right now? Tom, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I sure did. So automation and looking at advanced automation and moving beyond basic digitalization and implement AI-driven analytics for predictive ETAs, cost forecasting and dynamic pricing is really key. And the deeper integrations that you can expand API connectivity to customers, suppliers, and regulatory bodies for full operational transparency are really key items that you should be looking at.
Great. Thank you for that. So I have one. What role does data visibility play in improving collaboration with shippers, ports, and railroads? Dennis, can we bring you in for this one?
Yeah, sure. The interoperability term that we've used, and where container drayage companies really sit in our space, they're very reliant on third-party sources of data to execute. Marine terminals, rails, depots, ocean carriers. We've seen a trend over the last 5 years or so where more and more of those companies are opening up their data sources, and instead of just providing a website, they have open APIs where companies, drayage companies and software companies like ourselves can pull data, push and pull data. It's really key. It's really transformed the way drayage companies operate. It's enabled them to become more and more efficient. And I see that continuing to grow. We've seen not just the tracing perspective, but enabling automated appointments and pulling things like PIN numbers I mentioned before and digital interchanges. All of this data is really key for any drayage company, and to do it within their book of business or within their region, the marine terminals they serve and the rails they serve. It's an important aspect of the day-to-day life of any drayage company.
Yeah, the data sharing, KPIs, that kind of thing.
Yes.
That's great. So another one that we have, what is the most critical KPI? How can I improve it? And what results can I expect? This kind of goes back to what you were talking about. So I'm going to send this over to Dennis.
I would focus at really the high level of the KPI that we look at is my driver to staff ratio. That takes into consideration my total fleet size, the number of drivers that I have, and my total staff count on the back end. That's where we usually have customers start with. And I mentioned examples earlier about the financial bottom line performance from a company that has 50 drivers and 20 staff versus one that has 50 drivers and 10 staff. is enormous. You could really start there to figure out where you want to go from. And then, you know, offshoots or subsegments of that is, you know, operationally, how efficient are we? I know it's a driver to dispatch ratio is common in the industry. And then also a subseg of that is the, you know, the revenue per employee. That's where I would actually start from a KPI perspective.
Okay. Well, we only have time for one more question. So, Dennis, this final one is for you. If someone in the audience's drayage operation is not operating at the level of all industry best practices, how can they get started? How can they act? How can they take some action?
Good question. The key is to start the process sooner rather than later. Most companies are already on that journey. They're already on that digital transformation journey. Even if they don't know it, they are, because almost everybody's got a scanned document, uses email, and that's part of all this. What you're going to want to do is document your KPIs like we talked about. What's important to you? Where can you start to benchmark yourself against industry standards? And then also start to document your requirements when you go into the market and look for technology and look for software. You're going to want to engage with a short list of vendors. Don't just go into the market and look for generic transportation software. If you're a drayage provider, go out and look for container drayage TMS providers. And then do due diligence and make sure the due diligence is not just 3 vendors come in and a 1-hour demo of each and select one. That's not even close to the due diligence you need to do. So you got to vet your vendors. You have to check references and put a complete, you know, professional approach to the selection process.
Absolutely. Well, that brings us to the end of the webinar. I mean, it can feel so overwhelming, especially for smaller businesses, to have to think about all of these different elements. But this has been such a useful session on how they can start to master those core transportation processes, optimize shipment execution, and build larger, more diverse container drayage operations. And nobody has to know it all and be perfect right away. They can follow your incremental, good, better, best approach and boost productivity, increase ROI, and thrive in today's highly competitive market at a pace that suits them, which I love to hear. So CargoWise has a lot of great tools and resources. Make sure to go and check them out. You can learn more at cargowise.com/landside today. Also, this presentation will be sent to everyone after as well. So thank you so much to everybody who joined us, and a big thank you to Tom, Jessica, and Dennis.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you,
Thank you, Sarah.